Well, given that I'm writing a short story based on this franchise for a charity anthology, and with Series 9 about to hit, what better time than to go back to when, in the mid-90s, Universal and the BBC tried to revive Doctor Who as a brand new series after it had been cancelled in 1989. Now, this video is really going to focus more on what the pilot wanted to achieve versus the movie itself. In terms of a film in its own right, it's fine. It really is just a whole bunch of fine. The performances for the most part are good. Paul McGann makes good first impressions here, and if you've listened to any of the Big Finish audio plays, he is a superb Doctor. Eric Roberts is good enough as the Master. He's kind of a little bit Christopher Walken-y in his performance. There's kind of a stiltedness to it. The production values are good. I really like the design of the TARDIS here. It's sort of a cross of a Edwardian gentleman's library and then sort of the engine room of a ship like the Titanic. There's a few nice little continuity bits here and there. I thought the little bit with the jelly babies was amusing. Special effects are pretty decent for a TV movie from the 90s, considering this was the early days of mainstream CGI. You know, it's really just a whole bunch of fine. The script is just basically a rehash of many other Master stories and end-of-the-world type affairs, and there's not really a whole lot more to be said about it. And for me, why this is still worth discussing, aside from being the introduction to the 8th incarnation of the Doctor, is because it serves as a reminder of how not to really do revivals, how not to resurrect a property that's been away from the public consciousness for so long. As much as we Whovians love to give Russell T Davies flack in retrospect for all the soapiness that he put us through during the Eccleston and Tennant years, ultimately, conceptually, he had the right idea for how to revive the show when it came back in 2005. He made it mysterious. He cut out a lot of the old continuity by destroying Gallifrey and having the Time War be there and just give the show a clean start. Not ignoring the 50 years, but not feeling the need to chuck all of it on the audience. Basically, Doctor is a mysterious alien. He travels in the TARDIS. Time and space, there you go. That's basically what the pilot of that show, Rose, managed to do fairly effectively, even if in and of itself it wasn't exactly the greatest script that Who has ever been blessed with. The problem with the TV movie from the 90s when Universal tried to take a stab at it is that it's basically the opposite of that. It's very continuity heavy. Not just in terms of like little cute Easter eggs and references, but in terms of what's built into the actual plot. Basically, it's kind of in a strange way like the opening to the first Pokemon film, where you have the narrator going on about Pokemon and old legends and Mew. Basically, the film assumes that you already know the fundamentals of the Doctor Who universe. You know about regeneration, you know about Two Hearts and Time Lords and Daleks and the Master, and that's kind of a bizarre way to approach a script when it's very clearly wanting to be a new jumping on point. That's kind of what pilots for reviving shows are. They're meant to be brand new jumping on points for potential new fans. And you don't want to just sink them with a whole ton of stuff that they might not be aware of. For veteran Whovians like me, of course, I know what all this stuff is, so I can just focus on the actual story. But if you have no idea what any of this is, and the film does devote a fair chunk of time towards these elements, then you're going to be kind of lost, and you're going to be wondering, wait, why can he do that? Wait, why is he changing? Wait, who are these people? And the film doesn't do the greatest job in the world of explaining, and that's a huge problem, because if you're trying to get new people on board, people who've never heard of Who, or maybe only have vague memories of it, you want this to be as accessible as possible. You don't want to dumb it down or forget what makes Who, but you've got to give them a starting point. You've got to give them a base to build on. And to me, Rose did that a lot better. It understood that there are going to be a lot of people who don't know what this is, who maybe are here because they recognize an actor, and so they gave them a decent point. They built up this mystery around who the Doctor was, and they kept it very vague as to who he was, what the TARDIS was. They only told you what you really needed to know, and then it got on with telling its own story, and then as the series progressed, you got to find out more and more. Here, you not only have all those elements there where it opens with the Daleks executing the Master, so already who is the Master and who is the Daleks, but also then you have a completely different actor playing the Doctor, who is Sylvester McCoy. Now, in a case of Devil's Advocate, you can see why they had to do this, because it was to make sure that fans of the previous series didn't think they were being ignored, that this is the same character, and so they had him regenerate into Paul McGann. But the problem with this then is that it sort of creates a bit of a problem when it comes to who the protagonist is and who the audience is supposed to get invested to, because at first you're led to believe that it's going to be McCoy. But then, when he gets shot, and then you have the whole botched operation where one of the doctors doesn't know about the two hearts thing, again, another little bit of a head-scratcher, and then he turns to a McGann. If you don't know what regeneration and all that is, you're going to be kind of wondering why did he do that and what is going on here. And that's the big problem with the TV movie. It doesn't do a very good job of explaining things, and when it does explain something, it actually ends up coming across as kind of protracted and not particularly interesting. So it's one of those things where it needed to explain more, but the people making it probably weren't the best choice for it. Really, the 90s is full of TV pilots and TV movies that could serve as a masterclass in the do's and do not do's of TV production. Because on a technical level, everything is here, and they got a good lead actor in Paul McGann to take over. But it's just in the way that they handle it, the way that they threw continuity onto new viewers, it just leaves you wondering who this is for. It's kind of what I talked about with the Star Wars prequels. This doesn't quite fully understand who its target audience is going to be. And because it's an American co-production, and obviously they're the ones with the biggest stake here, you would think that they would try and make it as accessible as possible to new potential American viewers. But because it starts off in a very continuity-heavy fashion, and it continues like that through a good chunk of it, and then it just keeps throwing out names like Gallifrey and whatnot here and there, and never provides adequate enough context for those who aren't familiar with this mythos, it just makes you wonder what they were trying to accomplish. Did they think that this was really going to get picked up? It did decent in the ratings in the UK, but it got completely crushed in the US. And well, retroactively, fans and reviewers were not very kind to it, to put it mildly, and it's not hard to see why. It's decent entertainment, but it's one of those things where you really have to know what you're getting into before you go into it. And while in an alternate timeline it would have been nice to see McGann get a full TV show, I can't exactly say I'm complaining when he got to be in the Amazing Big Finish stories.